Mobile asset deployment. Mobile asset deployment, that's the next concept that we're going to be looking at. Mobile asset deployments. So we talk about mobile asset deployment. Mobile asset deployment refers to managing the life cycle of mobile devices such as the laptops, smartphones, tablets, Internet of Things within the organization. So these are assets that we are using within the organization, and our employees are the ones that are going to be using them to carry out their work, right? So that's what we mean. So when we are doing mobile asset deployment, we have to do an inventory, right? We have to have an inventory management system. And the inventory management system is the accurate inventory tracking and management of these devices, right? They're essential for the deployment of the mobile asset. Right. So if you believe you had 10 mobile asset at hand, right, and you have 35 employees, that's not good management of the asset. That's not good inventory. Somebody then went wrong. Somebody didn't check the inventory management to make sure that their mobile assets that are at hand to deploy to the amount of workers that we have in the business, right? Because they need it for the effectiveness of the business. And if some have and some don't have, what you're going to have is um, downtime, you know, unavailability of equipment to the employee that is effective in carrying out their function, their job function. And then when we before we deploy these assets, these mobile assets, we have to look at configuration, proper configuration of the mobile service, including the software updates, security settings, optimizing functionality. So when we talk about proper configuration of the mobile devices, software update, that means when there are updates to the software, it should be able to be done remotely, or there got to be a system in place that these devices are updated, because these are what the employees are using within the organization. So you don't want to have a gap in software update and security settings, right? The security settings, we will talk about the security setting. We're talking about those that the organization is going to put on the device, right? Because we don't want the employee to be using the device at their own um, doings, right? We want to make sure that we configure the settings so that we restrict certain things on the company's mobile assets, right? We have to do some restriction. And many of you might be working in organization that gives you equipment, that gives you a phone, that gives you a laptop, right, to use for work. And most time those equipment are configured in a way that will track what you're doing. It has security settings, which means that there are certain apps you cannot download. There are certain sites that you cannot go on, because they would have configured that when before they give you the device to work on. So sometimes many persons, they cannot download certain things, they cannot use certain Wi-Fi without protection, because the company configured it that way so you can. And optimizing functionality, you know, the functionality of the device must be able, it must be able to function to carry out the job that you are given to do. So not what you feel like you want to do on the company's mobile asset, but they optimize it to work on their to work to accomplish their job, right? That they give you to do. So you just can't do anything. Distribution and training. If it efficient distribution and user training ensures seamless integration of mobile asset into the workforce. So we have to make sure that they are training, right? How to use the equipment, the integration aspect of it. We have to do that kind of training, right? So let's look at some best practice. It's important that we do those kind of things, right? That employees knows what they are getting into. So we train them on how to use these mobile devices, how to do the integration, right, of the mobile assets into the workforce. So some best practice: mobile device management, enforce security policies, remote wiping, and access control. So many times mobile device management, which enforce the security policy of your organization, wiping and access control, that means that is if you do something that probably bring your own device to the organization, they should be able to do remote wiping their information from off your device. And if the if they give you their device and they see that you are a threat, they can stay where they are and remotely wipe that device out, right, from right where they are. Device enrollment, having to do with automatic provision with zero touch deployment, Apple Business Manager, Android Enterprise, all of those have device enrollment aspect. Security policy, implementing encryption, VPN access, and secure boot process. So it must be secure, it must have encryption. So, because if you're working in an organization that has sensitive data, then the data at rest and the data transiting over the network must be encrypted. You must access the internet from a VN, so there is no compromising, and it must have secure booting. So there must be a certificate of trust that says it has secure booting in it. Inventory tracking, using asset tagging and tracking solution to monitor device location and usage. So inventory tracking. So many organizations will probably do this, especially those with highly sensitive information. You want to make sure that you're tracking and monitoring the device usage and location, because one thing, when you are giving employees your devices, you want to make sure that they are using it properly, and that where they are using the device, that it is not out of the scope of the organization, right? Location restriction, right? And we look at the amount of usage that you are um, occurring, because if you are not, if we see that you are using this and occurring a lot of usage, and most of them is out of business time or business hour, then you need to be checked, right? If we realize that this device is in another country when we say that the device was supposed to be in this one, then we got to look at those. So we have to do inventory tracking, where the device is, how much of it you're using up. So let's look at an example. A company deploying a mobile device for remote employees configures with configure them with the MDM, that is mobile device management, enforcing multi-factor authentication, and setting up geofencing policies to restrict unauthorized logging outside the country. So many organizations will implement mobile device management, right? And we say that the mobile device management, it enforces security policy and remote wipe and access control. So if you said you are in the UK and then we realize the device is used in America, then we should be able, if you lose it, to remotely wipe that device out, wipe out the information, have access control to lock it down. And that's the reason we are allowing the enforcing of multi-factor authentication. That means if the device was stolen in England and somebody is using it in New York, the authenticating process will allow you, because it either sends an email or it sends a message to you stating that somebody is trying to log in at this location, or sometimes they make it central so that person who is in control at it from the organization can also get the information that, it is beyond the geofencing policy, the area of restriction. Logging in outside of the country is a restriction placed on these devices. So implementing a mobile device management is a very good thing, because if in case your device is stolen, if in case you are not trying to log in, it will make the alert, right? And we will be able to either wipe that device from where we are, lock the device, and all of that. So it's important that the company deploy a MDM, enforcing multi-factor authentication, enforcing the policy, right? So the mobile deployment, um, scenario. So do you understand that concept of mobile device? It's extremely important, because as persons within the organization, right? Many times you might be asked to bring your own device, or they have a policy that said bring your own device, or they may have a policy said, they give you their own devices, and they have all of these policies that are enforced on your device or enforced on their device that you'll have to follow. So deployment of assets is extremely important, as you can see. Mobile asset. Do you understand the concept of why we do the configuration? Distribution and training, why? Inventory management, why? So we do inventory management so we can deploy the mobile asset effectively and efficiently. We do configuration, like I said, so we can properly control the devices and do an there will be the ability for software update when needs be, optimizing the functionality, distribution and training. Those are important. And some of these are our best practices. Security policy. What is it? What is the security policy of the company? What have they enforced or implemented that must be a part of the device, that is going to be a part of the network, or you're going to use for the organization, right? We have to inventory tracking, right? So you will be trained and all of those. So let's look at a scenario that can help us. So this one is asset deployment scenario. Lost company smartphone. An employee lost their work phone containing sensitive data. All right, so this is when the company gives you their smartphone. And the smartphone, and can you imagine places like TikTok, places like Facebook will probably have devices that they give to their employees. And you show up at work and say that the device was lost. Or you'd inform them via email that you lost the device. But because you use mobile device management to enable remote wiping and enforce encryption on all mobile devices, right? Because you had that implemented, what happened is that even though the phone is lost, you can remotely wipe the phone. You can remotely shut down the phone where it is, Or another thing is, because you had this implemented, every data is encrypted. So whoever finds the phone cannot do anything with the sensitive data. And the reason they can't do anything with the data is because it's encrypted, because we had mobile device management um, enable enabling remote wiping and enforcing encryption. So the MDM, it is there for a purpose. So we have to implement those. So it doesn't matter where that phone is lost. The person that finds it, if it is a malicious attacker, they can't do anything with the data because the data is encrypted at the highest level. And not only is it encrypted, if the organization wants to, the organization can actually the organization can actually wipe the device from where they are. Yep, they can wipe it out. Wipe the device of everything, right? So that's very important right here. Using the mobile device management, which enable remote wiping. So just in case this is a high-minded, high-tech, sophisticated attacker, they're probably trying some way to decrypt the information. You can just wipe it out from where you are because it's enabled on the device. Let's look at another scenario. Unpatched device in the network. Employee fails to update company issues tablet. So employee failed to update the company issued tablets, leaving them vulnerable to exploit. So let's go back to something that we talked about earlier. Right? So we talk about um nope, let's go back to this. Here we talk about updates, right? In the configuration. We talk about updates, right? And when we are doing when we have a policy that says software must be updated, right? So sometimes maybe the company is not going to be there, is not going to be there to do the update, but they did train you and how to do the update, and you decide that you're not going to do any update, right? So what is happening is that you're leaving the company's device to vulnerabilities. So the employee fails to update the company issues tablets, leaving them vulnerable to exploit. But because the company has an automated security patch deployment through the MDM solution, it took care of that problem. Because we do know sometimes employees are not responsible. And so because we implemented the MDM solution, it automatically updates to do the patches. That's why configuration and all of that is important, because we don't want our sensitive information, and we can't rely on the employee to carry out these crucial aspect of our devices, or because they can forget. They said they fail, and sometimes the system gives you warning that the updates need to be done, but you just ignore it. But that's why companies, right, these data centers and organizations, they have to make sure that they buy software and hardware that has compatibility and the security that they need to do their business. If this particular company did not have the MD and the MDM, what would have happened? The whole system would have been exposed to malicious attackers. But because they bought the equipment, they bought the equipment that is compatible, that is aligned with the business need, they had this in it. Automated security patch deployment through the MDM solution. Do we get that? And we have to ensure that that is done, right? We got to ensure that that is done. So let's look at some new ones, right? Some new scenario. Unsecure public Wi-Fi use. A salesperson connecting a company-issued mobile device to a public Wi-Fi, exposing data to man-in-the-middle attack. Right? So you went to the airport or somewhere, some coffee shop, and you connect the company's mobile phone to the public Wi-Fi, enforcing the VN use on all corporate mobile assets when connecting to public network. So the VN protects the salesperson and give them secure connection to the public Wi-Fi. The untrusted network would be the public Wi-Fi, right? So we have to enforce the VN use on all corporate mobile asset. And if that is not enforced, then what is going to happen is that you, as the salesperson, is going to find out that you're exposing the organization data, sensitive data, to man in the middle. I remember what we said man in the middle is somebody that is in the middle of you and the company trying to steal the data, trying to intercept the data. And because we don't want that to happen, we have to make sure that there is a policy that enforces VPN on all corporate mobile assets. And if there is none, then you cannot connect to the internet. Sometimes you're connecting to these things and it said unsecure network, right? So you are at your own risk. So sometimes people said somebody steal their debit card, steal their credit card information. Ask them where did they connect from. Sometimes they don't have a secure network. They don't have a VPN, and they connect on a unsecure network where there is a man in the middle waiting to steal their information. And so the enforcement of the VPN is important when we are using corporate assets, their mobile assets. And it doesn't matter how you try to log on, it must enforce that policy that you must use, because we don't want to put organization at risk, right? We are there to build, we are there to ensure the smooth running of the organization. We're not there to try to create cost and vulnerability for them. So let's look at another scenario. Unauthorized app installation. Employees download unauthorized application that introduce a malware to the company's networks. So many times, as the company deploy their asset, their mobile asset, they are going to put restriction. Remember we talked about that in the configuration, that in the configuration they probably have restriction as to the apps that you can download. So the solution is restrict app installation to approve application, right? to approve applications using the MDM policy. So the MDM policy also has its own restriction. So if the company has the MDM um, system using, it enforce restriction and application you can install. And that is important because sometimes you give employees these mobile or these tablets and they have it at home and their children playing with them. Don't trying to download all kind of stuff with on a device that is not theirs, right? And so there got to be restriction on apps that you can download. So the company usually restrict a lot of apps that you can download because it is not related to the business. And if it's not business related, you cannot use the company's personal assets trying to download a Cartoon Network or a cartoon app or trying to download some app that don't have anything to do with the business. So the business must ensure that MDM policy is enforced on those mobile devices because you don't want to put the company at risk because most apps has malware in them, right? You don't know the application and then you realize it's filled with malware, and by the time you know it, it take over the network and damage the company. So this is very important that the MDM policy enforcing restriction and what you can download. If it is not company approved, you cannot download it. And I'm sure that for those of you who are working in organizations, you must see this. I was working at a particular school and there was nothing that you could download because it becomes a problem when you're downloading on the company's device. So let's look at another scenario, and this one having to do with poor inventory tracking. The issue is an IT team lose track of distributed mobile device, leading to loss of assets, right? Implementing asset tagging and use of GPS enabled tracking solution will tell you where it is. So sometimes you might give an employee may be given a piece of device and they probably come back later because they lost it, or they have it for their own personal need and report it lost or pretend like they didn't get one. So one of the things, if you have a poor inventory tracking system, well, it can lead to loss of assets, right? Poor inventory management. You don't know who you gave the company's mobile phone to. You don't know who you gave the mobile tablet, the tablet to. And then later on, I come and act like I didn't get one, or I report it lost. You gave me one and did not put it in the system to track it. Those are bad or poor inventory tracking. So one of the things that you can use as the owner over that organization, one of the things that you can do to solve the problem is to implement an asset tagging and use a GPS enabled tracking solution. So this is going to tell you exactly who you gave the devices, where the device is, right? So this is a thing that can helps you as the manager of the inventory or of the asset management team. So put in tagging. So okay, you said you was in New York when the device was lost, and now I see the device in UK or whatever it may be, right? So you track it and you are able to find out where the device is, who you gave the device to, right? Because that is enabled on the device. So do you see how important it is to have inventory tracking and how this can be configured to help you to cover yourself in the organization you are working for, so there are no problems in the end. It's very important. So let's look at another one. BYOD, policy violation. So BYO mean bring your own device, right? So some organization allow you to bring your own device to the organization, and you can plug it in the organization, but the organization have policy and how that device is going to be used on their network, right? And what are the security configuration they're going to put on your device. So if you're going to bring your own device, there are policies that you must follow. So this is not a device the company gave you, because the company may not have all the device, but they said bring your own. Bring your own smartphone, connect it to our network, but we're going to put policies and we're going to enforce them on your phone when you are using, because you're using our data, right? So this is what BYOD mean, bring your own device. And they all have policies, guys. So somebody may say they can bring their laptop to the work. Somebody may say they can bring their phone to work on. But if that organization don't have policies in place, you're going to have a lot of violation, and you're going to have a lot of security issues, especially with sensitive data. So let's look at this issue. Employees use a personal device for work without proper security configuration, risking data leaks. So one of the things that they can do is implement a bring your own policy that require endpoint security control before allowing network access. So what are the endpoint security that they can implement on this device to ensure that data is not leaked? It's very important, right? If you're going to bring your device, there got to be some rules and regulations that your device have to undergo before they connect to our network. Because yes, it's yours, but if you're going to use it, these are the policies. These are the requirements that we have that you must follow. And sometimes bring your own devices is not the best policy and not the best solution. It is best that the organization has its own devices that they give to their employees. Okay, let's look at another one. Device theft from a remote worker. A remote employee laptop is stolen from their car. Right? One of the things that the organization can do or must do before giving them the device is ensure all devices are encrypted and have remote wipe capability. Even with your personal phone, there got to be an agreement if your phone is lost that there's some way they can wipe that aspect of the phone, right? Wipe out that aspect of the phone that um, has their sensitive data. So ensure all devices are encrypted and have a remote wipe capability so they can wipe their sensitive data from off that phone. It's encrypted and that it has the ability or the capabilities to be wiped off. These are the dynamics of having um, mobile asset deployments, right? These are the things that has to be put in place so we don't end up losing our data and losing millions of dollars, lose our reputation, cost for findings, violation, and all of that. So we put these things in place, and we and not let the employee knows that your this device has all of these on it, right? So let's look at another scenario. No standardized mobile setup. Employee received a mobile device with inconsistent configuration. leading to IT support difficulties. The solution that we can use for this is an automate device provision using standardized deployment script from wherever you are to ensure that it's not in violation. Scenario 9, ex-employees still have access to device. That's a big one. That's a big one around here. The ex-employee has access to the device. What happened when you're not working in the organization anymore, but you still have access? A former employee retained access to a company issued phone, leading to unauthorized access. That should not be. You should have some policies in place that revokes your right and your accesses. So one of the solutions is to implement an automated offboarding process that revoke device access immediately upon termination. Right? So if the person is terminated, it is automated that they revoke their rights and their access to the device. Because we don't want them to still have access to our devices and have access to our data, and they're not employed there anymore. And sometimes organization allow this to bypass them. Many times organization allow this to bypass them. The person is not working there anymore and they still have access to the company's data. So we have to ensure that there are systems that are put in place. So when the employees are not working there anymore, they don't have every right is revoked. Your right to access the information is revoked. Let's look at another one. Okay, so I guess that was it for the scenario. The ex-employees still have access to the device, guys. Let's look at some multiple choices that can help to reinforce what we just learned. Very interested, right? Of how these devices work in the organization. Extremely interested. Number one, what is the primary purpose of mobile device management in a mobile asset deployment? It's all about controlling and configuring, okay? Policies enforcement. Remember that? Let's go back to it. Mobile device management enforces security policies, remote wipeout, and access control. So this is what it does. If your organization is going to give employee their assets to use, their mobile assets. So what is the primary purpose of mobile device management in a mobile asset deployment? A, allowing employees to install any application they want. B, enforcing security policies and remotely manage company's device. C, to prevent employees from using mobile device for work. D, to track employees' personal activity. So we're not trying to track employees' personal activity, and we're not trying to prevent them from using mobile device. And we are allowing that we can allow installation, but there got to be restriction of application. Remember we talk about that, restricting what they can install. So what we are basically trying to do is to enforce security policies and remote management and remotely manage the company's device. So the MDM is all about enforcing security policy and remotely manage the company's device. We want to see what you are doing on our devices. So we are remotely controlling the devices. And as a person that works in organization, guys, and going to be having your own company or working, you got to make sure because employees are slick, right? And we want to manage how much of our data usage they use it. What are they using it for? We got to have things in place to manage all of this. We just don't want them to be just freelancing, freestyling on devices, our devices. Number two, a company issues a smartphone to employees for remote work. What security measures should be enforced first? You are giving a smartphone to your employees for remote work. What security measures should be enforced first? A. Require employee to set their own security policies. Implement remote wipe capability and enforce encryption. Allow employee to issue the device. Allow employees to use the device without restriction. Enable only personal app for use on the work device. So we're not enabling no ability to use any personal app because we don't want them to download any malware on our system. Allow employees to use device without restriction. We gotta put some restriction on them, and they cannot set their own policy because it's not their device. Okay. And so the answer here would be to implement remote wipe capability and enforce encryption. And we do that because if the employee loses the company's asset, we should be able to wipe the device in, encrypt and wipe the device, or wipe out all the information that is on the device. Okay, so that's the reason um we are going to implement it before we give them. The first thing we will do. Number three, what is the biggest security risk when employee use personal mobile device without a bring your own policies? Remember we said BYO mean bring your own device. And if there is no policy that is implemented on bring your own device, then bring your own laptop, bring your own phone, we got to have some boundaries, some restriction, because you're going to use our connected to our network, you're going to use our data, so we have to implement some policies right here. Okay, so let's look at them. What is the biggest security risk when an employee use a personal mobile device for work without any bring your own device policy? A. Employee might use the device outside of work hours. B. The employee lose control over data security and compliance. The company loses control over data security and compliance. Employee may need IT support more frequently. The company cannot track personal browsing history. And so one of the most dangerous thing of bring your own device without a policy, the company will lose control over data security and compliance. And who wants that? We want to know that we have compliance and their data security, right? Let's look at the next question. A logistic company develop a tablet for deliveries, right? So they deploy a tablet, I'm sorry, that should be deployed. A logistic company deploys a tablet for delivery drivers. What is the best way to ensure device security while allowing GPS tracking? And we're tracking them. We want to know where they are with our with our devices and all of that. Okay. So what is the best way to ensure the device security while allowing GPS tracking? A. Require the drivers to enter password every 5 minutes. B. Implemented geofencing, remote monitoring through MDM. C. Disable the GPS tracking completely for privacy reason. D, let the driver install their own tracking app. No. So we are not allowing them to install no app. They are on restriction. We cannot disable the GPS tracking for privacy reasons. It's company's computer. This is company's property. So one of the things we can do and require driver to enter password, that doesn't help. So what we can do is to implement a geofencing and remote monitoring through MDM. So it tells us where you at with our device. Number 5, what should an organization do to prevent unauthorized access to lost or stolen mobile device? You got the device from the company, you lost the device or the device was stolen. Use strong password and biometric authentication. Require employees to return their device every night. Nobody can be bothered with that. Disable Wi-Fi access on mobile device. Only allow mobile device to connect to office network. So one of the things that we can do to prevent anyone from getting in is use strong password and biometric authentication. That means if it is not you, something you have, something you are, somewhere you are, then you cannot get in. Can't get in, right? We want to do as much restriction as possible to the company's device. And the worst of all is that this was lost or stolen. So we got to make sure that we have authentication on it, right? Number 6, a company deploys a new mobile device but employee download unauthorized applications, leading to malware infections. What is the best what is the best prevention method? So it's obvious that you didn't put any restriction on this, right? It's obvious that the company didn't put any restrictions. So this employee is able to download an application and install it and it has malware. So let's look at this. A, allow unrestricted app download to improve users experience. B, use a MD solution to restrict app installation to approve software. C, rely on employee to self-regulated app download. D, periodically resets all mobile device to factory, because by the time you periodically done that, malware would have taken over your entire system. You can allow employee to do self-regulation on your device with your sensitive information. And you cannot do unrestricted app download, because some of these employees, they got kids and people that will download what they want and fill your device with all kind of installation and malware. So what you want to make sure is that you use the MDM solution that restrict apps installation to approve software, right? Okay, you want to make sure you do that now. Let's look at the next question. What automatic security patching importance for mobile asset deployment? What automatic security patching is important for mobile asset deployment? A, I'm sorry, it's why. Can you imagine? I am not seeing why, but I'm seeing what, and I'm like, this doesn't sound right. Okay, sorry guys, is sorry for that. Okay, why is automatic security patching important for mobile asset deployments? Why is it important? It allows employee to customize their device freely. B, it reduces the workload for IT team. C, it ensures device stay protected against known vulnerabilities. D, it speeds up mobile device performance. And one of the reasons we want to make sure there are automatic security patching is to ensure the device stay protected against known vulnerability. because we did say that once the vulnerability is known and there is a patch, we must patch the vulnerability. If we don't, we are up for exploitation, right? And that in itself is a big loss and destroy of reputation. Let's look at our next question. And you should, I guess you should know by now what a vulnerability, what patches are, that they are there. They are, these are procedures or um, ways and means in which to patch a vulnerability in a system. You know, the techniques, the the um, the necessary um, the necessary route that you must take to patch any vulnerability in the system, to make sure that whatever the vulnerabilities are, that attackers cannot exploit it. Next question: a retail company deploys a company owned tablet for store employees to assist customer. How can the company prevent data breach? So they give you the company owned tablet that you may assist, and sometimes when you go to these stores, places like any phone company, you see that now, right? AT&T and all these companies, you see they have the company's devices that they're using to assist the customers, right? So how can the company prevent data breach from this? A, allow employee to share their login credential. B, enforce multi-factor authentication and role-based access control. C, store all customer data locally on the tablet. Disable all security measure to improve usability. So one of the things that you can do is enforce multi-factor authentication and do role-based access. So you role-based access is basically you only get privileges based on your role, right? You don't go beyond. So if you are an accountant, you only need accountant accessibility. That's your role. You don't need HR accessibility. So that is important. So there's not, so if even if there is any breach taking place, it would have be right across the organization. The breach would have probably been done on on the area that you have your role in. Let's say it is let's say that your role is to look up for, or just in HR, just in finance, right? Your role is just in finance. So you are just, if the breach occur, it's just in that. It don't spread across. So we need to give them role base. Are you understanding that so far? Okay. So let's look at this other question. A healthcare organization issue mobile device to doctors for accessing patient records. What regulation should their mobile asset deployment comply with? Just a minute there. What regulation should they comply with? Is it A, PCI DSS, B, IPA, C, SOX, D, GDPR? And the answer would be IPA, because IPA is the one that governs the Privacy Act of the medical industry, right? So the device that they are buying, it must be in compliance with IPA. Okay. Number 10, an advantage? What is an advantage of implemented geofencing in a mobile asset deployment? What advantage is there in putting a restriction, a geographical restriction on the mobile device? Is it A, it prevents device from functioning outside a designated area, improving security? B, it automatically disables all network connection on a mobile device. C, it removes all security restriction from the mobile device. D, it allow employee to use their devices anywhere without restriction. And we can't do that. So one of the thing it does, it prevents device from functioning outside designated area, and it improves security. Because like I always said, there got to be some rule and some regulation whenever we are using company's asset. We can't just using the asset wherever we feel like, however we feel like. So let's go back over some of the things that we did today. We looked at mobile asset deployment, and we said that mobile asset deployment refer to managing the life cycle of mobile devices such as the laptop, the smartphone, the tablet, and the IoT within an organization. So when we're talking about these devices, we're talking about those that belong to the organization that their employees are going to be using, right? So we look at the mobile asset deployments, and we said we have to have proper inventory, because proper inventory tell us how much we have at hand. So we don't want to run in a situation where we're giving out devices, we're not tracking who we give it to. People are coming back saying that they lost theirs. There's no tracking on anything. We just freestyling. And we said before we deploy these mobile assets to the employees, we have to make proper configuration of the mobile device. We have to have automatic software update. We cannot rely on the employee to do updates. So we have to have systems and procedure and automated system in place that will update the software, right? And we have to have security settings. We said security setting configuring in the device as to what employee can download, what they cannot download on this device. We have to enable certain settings just in case the device is lost. We can remotely wipe the device. We can encrypt the information on the device if the customer lost the device. So those are security settings, and we must optimize it for functionality only for the purpose of the business, right? We cannot allow employee to use the devices out of the scope of work. We have to also ensure that the devices that we are giving to employee or we are bringing, that they too follow the policy. So if the employees are going to bring your own device to connect to our network, there are policies that those devices must follow. They must be implemented. They must be enforced, right? And then we talk about distribution and training. And we said efficient distribution and users training ensure seamless integration of mobile asset into the workplace. So we are going to train our clients, and we look at some best practices. Our customer, that was our client, and we looked at best practices, and we said implement MDM, enforcing security policies and remote wipeout access control. We said device enrollment, we put them in automatic provision, where you can um, where we can have the system doing automatic patching, taking away rights from people who are no longer working in the organization. All of those things we have to ensure. Security policy. We enforce encryption. We enforce if you're going to connect to any untrusted network, that there are VPN that gives you secure access and secure booting. Inventory tracking. Always have a tracking of device. Make sure you know where the employees are with your device, right? So we looked at all of that, and that will bring us to the end of this concept. And like I've always said, if you have any question, do not fail to reach out, and I will answer whatever questions you desire. Guys, it is absolutely important that you know that mobile devices, laptops, and all of these things, that companies will allow it to happen, but there got to be policies in place, okay?